Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to this special broadcast on Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha. Speaker of the Knesset, Mr. Amir Ohana, is currently on a visit to India, the first ever official visit to the country by a sitting speaker. As part of his official engagements, he met with Rajya Sabha Chairman Jagdeep Dhankad and Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla. An agreement was also signed between both speakers for cooperation in exchange of information and knowledge sharing. So to tell us more about the agreement and his India visit, I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Amir Ohana on Sansad TV. Shalom Namaste, Mr. Speaker.
Shalom Namaste.
Thank you for your time and welcome to Sansad TV. Let me begin the program today by asking you, because this is your first visit to India, the first official visit of a sitting speaker of the Knesset. Why did you choose India to be your first destination for your official visit?
Well, actually, you were correct. It's my first visit to India. It is any speaker of the Knesset's first visit to India. And it is also the first visit for me as a sitting speaker. I came in 3 months ago. And when I had to choose between the different options, where would be my first visit, India stood up from all the other countries. Because, first of all, it's a new thing. We never had a sitting speaker visiting India, so that is very important. But also, we see the tremendous progress that this country is making in many, many various fields. And we know about the good connection between India and Israel. You know, it is the #1 destination for young people from Israel to come and visit. And we love the Indian people. And I thought that it will be only appropriate that this is where I'm going to visit first.
So if I may ask a related question, what do Israelis think about India? How do they perceive India and Indians to be?
First of all, I think they appreciate the Indian people and the Indian spirit of peace and respecting the other and very calm down. Not as stressed in Israel. We are also always very stressed. We have a very long history, both nations, very long and rich history and tremendous respect for our traditions, but still something very unique. We look forward to the future. We are trailblazers in the fields of high tech and technologies, and there is much, much in common. Actually, it is one of the only places where Jewish communities lived for thousands of years, but yet never experienced anti-Semitism. This is an unknown term in India, anti-Semitism. But Jews in the diaspora in many, many countries have unfortunately experienced it. So I came to say how much we dear the Indian people and the Indian country and how much we appreciate the way...
You're right. Our civilizational links, in fact, date back centuries ago. The fact that we have been strategic partners since 2017. Just last year, in the year 2022, we celebrated 30 years of our friendship. So over the decades, how do you see India-Israel relationship having evolved?
Well, I think we can only appreciate the leadership of our two leaders, the Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu, which I think more than any other Israeli or Indian leader did to build the bridges between our two countries. And I was fortunate enough to meet Prime Minister Modi when he came to visit Israel, and it was very moving for me. And now I'm so glad to be the first speaker of the Knesset to visit this country. I think there is much to do. You know, unfortunately, both our nations have experienced terror, and we in Israel are considered to be quite good and experts in counterterrorism. And I personally experienced that when I served 12 years in the Israeli Defense Forces, both in the IDF and the Shin Bet, the Israeli Security Agency, during the second Intifada, which was the most challenging times counterterrorism-wise that the country and the organization has ever known. So there is much that we can contribute, much that we can cooperate in that field, because unfortunately you experience terror from time to time as well.
Right. And, the Lok Sabha Speaker, Mr. Om Birla, also cited this after your meeting, that terrorism remains a common cause of concern for both India and Israel, and we need to do much more. Coming to your parliamentary visit, how was your meeting with Lok Sabha Speaker, Mr. Om Birla? Also tell us about the agreement that both parliaments have signed to cooperate in terms of information exchange.
Yes, it was, of course, a very kind and generous hospitality by my counterpart, but also it was very significant because of this memorandum of understandings that we have signed today, strengthening the relations between the parliaments. We know that there is great relations when it comes to people,
Right.
also prime minister to prime minister, we mentioned that, but we didn't have as strong relations as parliaments, which I think is essential as a speaker of Knesset, is essential for public diplomacy. And therefore, now we shall see more delegations coming from India to Israel, from Israel to India. We do expect also a visit from Prime Minister Netanyahu to come this year, hopefully, this year, to visit his good friend Prime Minister Modi and to visit his good friends, the people of India.
Since you spoke about more collaborations between the two parliaments, in India, a lot of thrust by both the ruling party and the other parties is on increasing representation of women in parliament. So if you could help us and our viewers understand about the kind of representation women have in the Knesset.
Well, we still haven't achieved the goal of 50%, which is roughly the percentage in the population. And we strive to do that, but each party has their own system. In my party, in Likud party, which is at this time the ruling party, the system is an open primary system. So it is up to the 140,000 registered members of Likud to elect their representatives. As we all know, Israel used to have a prime minister, the sixth prime minister, if I'm not mistaken, Golda Meir, a very wise woman. And we had, and we still have ministers and members of Knesset, but we still have a way to go. I agree.
Okay. So, since we're talking about parliament and for the benefit of our viewers who want to understand the Israeli parliament better, what's different from the Indian parliament is that Israel doesn't have a written constitution, there's no bicameral legislature, there is no federal structure. How has this phenomenon shaped the idea of democracy in Israel? Something which is very different from India.
Well, there are many differences. For instance, at this time, in India, the ruling party doesn't even need a coalition. That never happened in Israeli history. No party has ever gotten a majority, more than 50% of the parliament, so we always have to form coalitions. And coalition building means you have to come with different parties, different views, and that means compromise. That happens. Now, it is true that we don't have a constitution, but there is a question to that because the president of the Supreme Court, Aaron Barak, the former president, said that we have a constitution and it is called the Basic Laws. We do have basic laws dealing with human rights, dealing with states' institutions, and so on. And in many, many ways, the argue of Aaron Barak is that we do have a constitution and there is a whole field of constitutional law in Israel. Now, it is a matter of dispute. It is a matter of disagreements within society because normally when a constitution is accepted, it's accepted by a wide consensus. Not a coast-to-coast consensus, but a wide consensus. And that didn't happen ever in Israel. But the basic thing to understand and to realize the similarities between our two countries is that we are a vibrant democracies. And we see in Israel, government has changed and there was a peaceful transmission of power between governments and between leaders throughout all the years. And it still will be the case. I believe in India it is the same. And we are learning from our good friends how to be greater democracies.
Okay, since you spoke about coalitions, what has been interesting to observe also is that for over 3 decades, Israeli governments have not been able to complete their terms. Apart from the structural issues, what are the other reasons because of which this is happening? What are the kind of changes that are required?
Many have spoken throughout the years of changing the way we form governments, changing the Israeli politics. The thing is, to do that, you need to legislate. And to legislate that, you would need the medium-sized and the small-sized parties, which are a part of every coalition. And they wouldn't agree, because if, for instance, our goal would be to upper the threshold for parties to come in the Knesset, and thus concentrating towards two major parties, maybe even 3 or 4 major parties. Currently, we have 13 parties in the Knesset. So the idea is that to do that, you will need the support of the medium and the small-sized parties, which they will never agree. So to do that, you need the 2 major parties that has more than 51% to gather together and agree on the changes that needs to be done. But it is not very likely that it is going to happen. First of all, currently, even the 2 major parties, Likud and Yesh Atid, who are on both sides of the aisle, don't have a majority. They don't have more than 51%. But even if they did, we have our differences. So it is probably a matter of the future. In the future, maybe we can do the changes, but currently it is politically impossible.
Thank you for explaining to us about the polity. But if I may also ask you about, as Speaker of the 25th Knesset, correct me if I'm wrong, what are your priorities? What are the initiatives that you are undertaking?
First, I want to expand the international relations of the Knesset, which this visit symbolizes. I see it as a very major part of parliamentary diplomacy to reach out to other countries we haven't done it before. We would like to invite. In these 3 months, I hosted quite a few speakers of other parliaments from Canada, from South Korea, from Italy, and we would like to see more and more of that. I made a great gathering of all the ambassadors serving in Israel, explaining to them about internal issues, about Israeli diplomacy, and about the way I see the Knesset. This is a major part. And of course, with the checks and balances that we need to see between the 3 branches of government, I would like to see the legislator going to higher positions, because, when Montesquieu gave the idea of checks and balances and separation of powers, he considers that the judiciary should be inferior to the other 2 because it is the less democratic one. It is the only one with no elected officials within it, unlike the parliament and the executive branch. So I wouldn't like to see it inferior, but surely not superior,
Absolutely.
Which is a part of what we are trying to do to balance. And as you can realize, it is a matter of dispute. It is a matter of argument between us. But hopefully, finally, we can achieve the right balance.
Absolutely. Let's hope that the right balance is achieved in the times to come. But in terms of engaging with the youth, because what we've also seen in India, that participation of young lawmakers has made a whole lot of difference. The kind of transformation that we've seen in India in recent times, a lot of credit goes to the young legislators who've come up with those ideas and that have been implemented. So how do you plan to engage with the youth of your country towards lawmaking?
Well, in my chambers, I have a very big picture, and I invite you to see it, from the first sitting of the first session of the Knesset at its current location. That was August 31st, 1966. And you see the Knesset members, pretty, not very young people. And when I see the current Knesset, I see much more younger faces. So I think the entrance of young people to politics is a positive thing. Of course, experience is also a big thing, so you need to balance between the 2. But we have many young Knesset members, and I would like to see more and more. I encourage them to engage with my party, because in my party, as I said, unlike most parties in the Knesset, it is not up to the leader to decide who he wants to see as number 2, 3, 4, and so on, but to the registered members, actually to the people to decide. So we see more and more of that in the Knesset. Actually, in my meeting, we discussed exchanging groups of young parliamentarians under the age of 40, which we would like to see more and more between our two parliaments.
So that's heartening to know that there will be more collaborations between the two parliaments. Now coming back to the India-Israel relationship, we've spoken about how it has blossomed over the decades, but what are the newer areas of cooperation that you see where there is huge potential that is yet to be untapped?
Almost every field of life. I see it in agriculture, I see it in security, defense, intelligence. I see it in technologies, in high tech. Imagine if we can combine the best of the two worlds. You know, we are very, very much smaller in size, actually less than 1% of the size of India, and in population as well, less than 1% of the population of India. But we are considered to be trailblazers when it comes to high tech and technologies and startups, and India as well. If we can combine the two, imagine where we can go to. So almost in every field of life, I would like to see more and more corporations. This is one of the goals of this visit.
In fact, you spoke about technology, so that leads me to the next question on the kind of digital transformation that India has seen in recent years. The fact that we need like-minded countries, we need partner countries to help us with this transformation. So how can Israel be a developing partner to us, especially when it comes to the field of high technology, futuristic technology?
Well, we already have many cooperations, centers in India developing the new generation of high-tech personnel and startups. This is something we want to achieve more. We want to see more of that. There is much potential because we, as you said, we share values of democracy, values of freedom, and this is something very important when it comes to international cooperations. So we can and we want to do more. I believe that in the next years we will see even further strengthening of the relations between the countries and deepening their cooperation regarding technologies as well.
You know, while doing my research, I stumbled upon this term Green Knesset project. So I'm curious to know about what this project is all about and what the Knesset is doing to preserve the values of sustainability, something that India is also embarked on the path to in the next few years.
Well, the world is going through an energy crisis, as we all know, and we need to find alternative energies. And this is something that Israelis have been doing for years. And one of my predecessors decided that the Knesset will be a green Knesset, a green parliament. It comes, we have solar plates all over the rooftop. We try to consume as less as possible with unfriendly products for environment, and I think we are doing a pretty good job in that, and I hope to continue.
Okay, time allows me to take up only that, but I would like to end with a positive message that you have for our viewers.
Well, all of the messages that I gave so far are positive, but the most positive is that, Israelis love the Indian people. I see it every day. And this is one of the major reasons why I came here. I think it goes vice versa. Now we are going to open the skies of Oman to free flights. So we're going to have direct flights from Israel to southern India, which I believe will bring more and more tourism, more and more industry, more and more trade between the two countries. And I encourage our viewers to come and see with their own eyes the beautiful Israel and the warm Israel, and expand the relations between the two peoples and the two countries, and also the two parliaments.
Okay, so we wish you to a very fruitful visit, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your stay in India. That having been said, I'll have to wind up the program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for joining us on Sunset TV and sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers.
Thank you, Tina. It has been a pleasure. Shalom, namaste.
Shalom, namaste. And to you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well. I'll see you same time next week now with another special guest. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Keep watching Sunset TV.